Joe Schad, Jason Leisure, live in Miami Dolphins camp. It is late at night, but
Very late.
The Dolphins did make their pick, and it turns out they landed a player that they were very interested in, Charles Harris, defensive end out of Missouri. He wore 91
Uh-oh,
in
that's not going to
college.
work here, is it?
The most widely read story in the Daily Dolphin last year was about how Jay Ajayi would not give Arian Foster his number 23. And that was a good decision. And I doubt that Charles Harris is going to be asking Cameron Wake for his number 91. What do you think, Jason?
Hey, Cam, can I have your number? And also, I'm here to replace you whenever they decide you're too old.
So the Dolphins go defensive end. I think this is a very smart move. Dolphins need to add youth to their pass.
Is that what you wrote? I haven't
rotation.
seen what you wrote. Is that what you wrote?
I didn't really go too much into, great pick, bad pick. I think everyone kind of realizes the Dolphins needed to add a young defensive end who can get to the pass rusher. They passed on a few players. I'm wondering what you think about Dalvin Cook, David Njoku, Forrest Lamp, Takaris McKinley, Taco Charlton. There were a lot of guys that could have been on the Dolphins' radar as we see J.J. Watt goes to the Steelers, his brother.
Yeah, the last few rounds are the last few picks, I believe, of the first round are wrapping up as we're on here. Joe, I think that the guy that had to have tempted them would have been David Njoku, because I know tight end is not as pressing of a need as some of their defensive needs, a lot of their defensive needs, but man, David Njoku is so good from the University of Miami. A lot of these guys know him because they probably watched him. I believe he went to Cleveland around 25, was it? He went a couple picks later and just really would have been an attractive guy for them to pick.
If you're wondering about Charles Harris, he's
you wrote about him.
He's also a guy who I had a chance to watch play in person a couple of years ago. Missouri has produced many pass rushing defensive ends who have had great success. Everyone from Shane Ray to Sheldon Richardson. There are a handful more. He's a guy who has an incredible explosive first step. A guy who has had more than 20 sacks in the SEC in the last 2 years, more than 30 tackles for loss. So, when you're in a division with Tom Brady, even though it's an aging Tom Brady, you need to do everything you can to create pressure. And this was the most likely scenario for the Dolphins. And the draft played out pretty nicely, because when you look at how many players early in the draft were drafted that were offensive players.
Yeah, and we can tell you, I definitely can tell you a little more about the process for the Dolphins, but I want to stick on Harris. And Joe and I go through a lot of the prospects leading up to the draft, and I wrote some, you wrote some, but Joe was the one that did Harris. And one of the questions I have for you about Harris is his numbers are not amazing. They're good, but they're not amazing. And then his combine numbers were not really amazing either. Having seen him play, is there more to him than that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the Dolphins wanted to do is they wanted to make sure that this year they did something they haven't done in past years, which is make sure that the players that they draft love football. And the Dolphins, you can read about this in the Daily Dolphin. Palm Beach Post is the only South Florida news organization that had this story. It was about a sports psychologist that the Dolphins have employed to interview
the guy from Harvard.
50 of their prospects and to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether or not that player is self-motivated. And obviously for Charles Harris, it was all thumbs up. This is a guy who they think plays with passion, with heart, with motor, with determination, and a guy who didn't play football until his junior year of high school. So his talent is not fully formed, and that is something that is attractive to the Dolphins. Not a big guy.
He was a basketball player. We believe he's what, 6'2", 250, something like that?
6'2" to 6'3", 253 pounds. We thought that the typical Miami Dolphins defensive end in the wide nine looked like Mario Williams, 6'6", 300.
Gigantic, right.
This guy is not that, but very interesting, and this is something for us to monitor moving forward. What do you think about Adam Gase and Chris Greer's comments that the Dolphins are tweaking their defense to create more flexibility and the ability to bring in players whose height, weight, speed, size don't necessarily fit the prototypical defense that they've used before?
It sounds to me like they just want to be faster on defense, that they're going to prioritize speed over size.
That's a good point.
As far as Charles Harris and the Dolphins' interest, Joe, from what we gathered from Chris Greer, this was a guy they locked in on about a month ago. And then as they got closer to the draft, they had a visit scheduled for him to come here to Davie to work out and interview and all that, and they canceled it, according to Chris Greer, deliberately to throw people off the scent. They didn't want people knowing that they were so fixed on him and they already felt comfortable enough after all their research on him as far as character and things like that.
If Bill Belichick read the Daily Dolphin, he would know that in my first ever mock draft, I selected Charles Harris from Missouri for the Miami Dolphins. Now, there was a bit of luck involved.
Why would Bill Belichick be reading that?
Well, he monitors the media. He has people who work for the underlings, the minions, who gather information.
You know who might actually read it is President Trump. That's possible.
All right. Charles Harris. What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's get a little more into the process. So
people are upset about passing on Forrest Lamp.
Yeah, I'm curious who else. I did see it. I saw a
Lamp.
comment on that. I saw a couple people liked it. A couple people didn't like the pick. Forrest Lamp, I believe he still ended up going in the first round. We missed a few of the late picks because we were taking care of Dolphin stuff, and now we're in here with you guys. But as far as the way things went today, the Dolphins said they got 2 calls about the 22nd pick while they were on the clock, and they never really got anywhere in those conversations, Joe, because they said they were set on Harris all along. They had 2 guys on their board, and from what I understood from Greer, and tell me if you maybe understood this differently from him, Harris was their number 1 guy, and then they had kind of a plan B in case Harris had gone the couple of picks before.
People want Forrest Lamp. I would have been okay with Forrest Lamp.
People do not want Forrest Lamp.
Dude, I'm telling you, the fans... Listen,
nobody ever clamors for an offensive guard.
I'm telling you, people loved Forrest Lamp. Maybe it's just because he has a really cool name, or
he does have a funny
name. He's been compared to Zach Martin, or Martin, depending on how you want to say it. I would have been okay with Forrest Lamp. Most people in the media, Dolphins media room, did not want an offensive guard in the first round. But protecting Ryan Tannehill is somewhat important, and their recent track record of drafting offensive linemen has been successful.
You can find anybody to play guard.
Reuben Foster, who was selected at the end of the first round, the Alabama linebacker, he is a beast, man. He is a monster. He is a beast. I am told that Foster was taken off of the Miami Dolphins first round board.
He was there for him.
He was not on their list of players because of off-the-field concerns. We know it leave the NFL scouting combine.
Are you saying he was off their board completely, or just didn't... They
were not
figured he'd be available in the second or third?
No. I'm just told that due to character issues,
specifically the first round,
I should not have expected the Dolphins to draft Reuben Foster.
Good info. Good
especially in the first round.
Good to know. As far as what they plan to do with Charles Harris, we know that Cameron Wake is a 5-time Pro Bowler and looked pretty good last year. We know that Andre Branch just got, $24 million, a 3-year contract. Those guys are going to be your starters. And then they traded for William Hayes from the Rams. Where do you think Charles Harris fits into this?
Well, it's going to be a rotation. They're going to utilize, and actually, when you look at it, it's pretty good for defensive linemen. You're going to ends. You're going to go with Cam Wake and Andre Branch as your starters, and then you're going to rotate in Charles Harris, and then the run-stopping guy that they just got for the Rams,
William Hayes, the guy that believes in mermaids.
And you also have some depth there with Fide and Wormsley as possible guys who could make the roster. So I think if anything, the Dolphins might be looking to add a defensive tackle either later in the draft or in veteran free agency because they're still quite short at the defensive tackle position.
Let's talk very quickly. This will be the last thing we hit. Joe, they go. We'll be back with you guys, by the way, after they make selections tomorrow and Saturday. But tomorrow they've got a 2nd-round pick, 54th overall, and then they've got a 3rd-round compensatory pick, 97th overall. We don't know who's going to be available, especially 97. It's impossible to predict that right now. But just position-wise, what would you attack if you were the Dolphins in the 2nd and 3rd round?
All right, I'll be very surprised if the Miami Dolphins don't draft a guy who can play guard and or center in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Maybe Ethan Posick or somebody like that from LSU.
Yeah, there's a guy from Texas A&M. There's 3 or 4 guys that should be available in the 2nd or 3rd round that play guard or center. To me, that is the next priority.
Offensive line, 2nd round.
Okay. 2nd or 3rd round. And then I think
the other one would be what?
You get a chance to pick up a corner or a safety or a linebacker. I think that would be the other choice. How would you rate the 1st and 2nd choices for a position?
I think I'd go linebacker and safety. I think those are the places I would address if I were them.
I'm telling you, I would have a little bet here on Facebook Live on the Daily Dolphin. If the Dolphins, I'm saying there's a 90% chance the Dolphins take an offensive lineman in the 2nd or 3rd round.
2nd or 3rd, I'd pick one.
Second, no,
Stick around.
You're saying they're not
Stick
going
around.
to. You're saying take linebackers and safeties and corners.
Yeah,
you don't even want to guard.
I
You think
don't.
guards are boring.
They are
Guards
boring.
are not boring.
You know what?
Guards are important.
One thing that I
you
did
can't
learn.
just find a guard at Publix.
I think you might be able to. One thing, though, I did pick up from today watching the draft as far as it concerns the Dolphins is the 3 top tight ends, Ingram, Howard, and Njoku, Evan Ingram from Ole Miss. All 3 of those guys are gone. They're all out in the 1st round. So I think the Dolphins will now probably wait till the 5th round to address that spot.
You want a tight end?
I don't necessarily covet a tight end, but they need one. If you look at it, they need one. They don't necessarily need one right now, but they need one for 2018 for sure.
Okay.
We will be back with you guys tomorrow. We promise.
Good crowd for 11:47 p.m.
I don't know if I guess we'll probably be with them a little earlier because we can come on after the 2nd round pick tomorrow. Probably
maybe second. Round
we'll do our best. We'll be with you guys tomorrow and Saturday. Stay with us on the Daily Dolphin blog, on our Facebook page, on Twitter. We have everything you guys need. We have you fully covered. We got a lot of people down here covering. Hal Habib, Dave George are down here with us. We'll have tons of content coming. You guys
and go to the Daily Dolphin. I wrote a column about how the Dolphins can only hope that Charles Davis is Cam.
Harris.
Thank you, Charles Harris. Charles Davis is a nice guy. Works for NFL Network. Charles Harris, that he can be Cam Wake-like. And you also wrote a news story about the draft choice.
Yeah, some behind-the-scenes stuff that you might find interesting.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.